Hey, I'm Dave Aarons. Welcome back to my channel. So what I thought we'd go over this time is some work holding options at the bench. First and foremost, the main thing we're going to use is the bench vise. The vise that I recommend for the workbench is what's called an Eclipse 9-inch vise. But it's a quick release, pull this little lever over, allows you to slide the vise jaws in and out. That will cinch it down. I lined the jaws with some oak boards, and I also glued an oak board to go over the top so that if a child is working in this vise, that he does not have metal contact with his tool onto the vise jaws. So if he's like running a saw, the teeth wouldn't get damaged. That required me to move this little movable dog out that comes with the bench vise, but this goes in this slot right here. It's covered up by this piece of oak. But I really never used these anyway, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. When it comes to vices with woodworking with a child, I do just recommend you get a full-size one right off the bat instead of trying to get a smaller one. Because work holding is work holding. And it's frustrating to deal with a vise that will not hold the workpiece properly or hold it secure enough. So the 9-inch, I've never been done wrong by it, and there's always a use for it. Even though later on you might graduate up to a larger bench with a larger, like a leg vise or something, that you'll always find a use for a quick release vise, face vise like this Eclipse. On the bench top itself, I recommend you drill a series of dog holes. I drilled these dog holes a certain spacing apart, which we'll get into later on when I talk about a movable bench dog. And also I drilled holes back here for my holdfast. I drilled them in such a way that with the holdfast I have, that they are able to hold work pretty much anywhere. If I put a board anywhere on this bench, there's going to be a holdfast hole there to be able to secure the work. The bench vise should be able to hold a board 3 ways, especially with the smaller work pieces. One, you want to be able to plane on end. So we're going to chuck that in the vise. And this is so that if you had to smooth an end out, you could. So I'll run my little block plane here. And you also want to be able to plane a board on edge. And then finally you want to be able to do the face of the board as well. So I can get at all 6 sides of the board doing that. Yeah, you really need a vise that's quick acting because it's just so much faster. You want to encourage yourself to be able to manipulate that board as much as possible. So that Eclipse 9-inch, that will hold a board the 3 ways you want to hold a board with smaller work pieces that mostly we're going to be doing on this channel anyway. Another option to hold your workpiece is what's called a bench hook. And a bench hook is 3 boards. Take one board you put here, is a small narrow fence. And then another small narrow fence here. Here of course is your platform. On the back of mine I put some skateboard tape, so when I put this on the bench it doesn't slide around on me. Okay, but they call it a bench hook because it does just that. Hooks onto your bench. And then from there I can take a workpiece, push it against that fence, and then I can perform an operation. So in this case I want to make a cross cut. So I'm going to grab my little back saw here, and we'll get into the technique of this shortly. Okay, so now I'm pushing against the fence of my bench hook. And that's keeping it tight against the workbench. Alright, so that allows me to do a cross cut with a back saw. On this side, if I flip it over, you want to keep this fence. When you make these things, you put this fence at a 90 degree to this edge or this edge, depending on which hand you are. It just happened that I'm able to saw on this side and do a shooting on the other side. So I'm going to shoot from this side. That does just fine. There are dedicated shooting boards out there, but for right now, for basic, what you want to get is a bench hook. Another option for work holding is what's called a hold fast. And it does that just what the name implies. It holds things fast. So the hold fast, if I wanted to hold it even more securely to my bench hook, I put the hold fast in what's called a hold fast hole that is pre-drilled into your bench. I whack it right here. And yeah, it's not going to move. So I'm going to move my bench before that workpiece come out. I mean, I can twist it a little bit, but it holds pretty well. Okay. To release them, you just hit back here and release automatically. So what that shaft does is that hole, it gets wedged, and that's what gives you that action. But that's the hold fast. In addition to hold fast, I like to use called dogs. These are ones you can just buy. These are from a company called Craig, and they're plastic. The only thing with these is recommend that you rough up this face with some sandpaper. These ones are nice because they have this little rubber insert on the top. And what you can do with these is, I always buy these tools like hold fast, bench dogs, clamps. When I'm buying clamps, I always try and buy them in even multiples, so 2, 4, 6, whatever. So if I'm gonna buy a set of bench dogs, I'm gonna buy at least 4 of them, or at least 2 of them. If I'm gonna buy clamps, always buy them in pairs, okay? So that elevates that, and this is great for finishing, things like that, where I wanna elevate that a little bit. Be able to get it. Where'd my block plane go? There it went. So I want to camfer this long edge right now. Well, since those are rubber, it's pretty sticky. Get a good sharp plane here. And I can run my camfer. I can run my finishing brush. If I'm putting stain on here or putting a varnish on here, and I can get it all the edges fine. You can also just make them yourself. These are some ones that I made out of a 3/4 inch dowel. I make a little notch right here. I put a ball catch in them so that when you put them in the bench, it just holds it securely in that hole. Okay. These ones are actually sized for my other bench, but I'd want to put that ball catch up here somewhere. But my other bench has a much thicker top. So you can just make them yourself. This is probably a good option. Just pick up a 3/4 inch oak dowel, and yeah. Another good option to have is a hand screw. And what a hand screw allows you to do is to clamp irregular shaped objects. Okay. So I'm gonna put this right here. I'm gonna put a workpiece in here, and they're real fast. You just twist them around like that, you can get pretty close to what measurement you want. So I'm going to put that there. Put this over here on my bench. So if I didn't have a vise, I could do this. Or if I didn't have a hold fast, I could grab an F-style clamp and actually clamp that to my bench. Okay. And from there, I got the board so I can plane it on edge again. Just got to be careful that I don't come close to hitting my hold fast right now. You'll see me a lot of times clamp clamps. So that time I was holding a clamp with a hold fast, which is a clamp. If I had a smaller board and I want to do another operation, say chiseling or carving or something like that, I could put this in here. Let me get this set up a little bit better. There we go. Oop. Okay, here we go. I'm going to clamp my hand screw into my vise. Grab me a chisel. I can chamfer this. Run a block plane, all kinds of operations you can do. Gets a little bit higher so where you can see what you're doing. So yeah, and when things aren't exactly square, you're trying to hold something that's maybe tapered, hand screws come in very handy. Another thing I like to have at the bench, although this is not necessary, this is a machinist vise that belonged to my grandfather. And what I use this for is I'll clamp this here at the end of my bench. And this is just for all those little odd jobs that show up, whether I have to hold a tool that I need to repair. I want to hold a card scraper that I want to sharpen. I want to hold a piece of hardware so I can, cut it to length. If I want to put a hinge in there, to finesse it a little bit, maybe file the edges. I just find that a little machinist vise like this is beneficial. So. Well, thanks again. Thank you. Appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe. Check out my other videos, and yeah, get a child woodworking.